It seems we've got 2 days to dispel the purported laws that are proposed by a purported government. Good morning. It's finally decided it's going to reset itself. Thank you. So I'll start again. We have purported laws proposed by a purported government to be debated over 2 days before they try to force them into being. This is not, when you look at it, something that's been put together over the last couple of weeks since the happening at Bondi. Does anybody here agree with what happened at Bondi? Absolutely not. Why would we? When you murder a human being or take the life of anybody, who gave you the right to do it? Nobody. Was the government involved? Well, you work it out. You work it out. They knew these people went out and in, and marvellously, the commissioner of the purported federal police has done a full inquiry and decided they didn't go there to train. They didn't go there to train. And they learnt all that in a week. But you want to have a royal commission, which will take a long time. No, really, I believe you want what you want. You want to use it as an excuse to take our laws off us, our freedom off us. You went straight to guns. Why? I believe you want to take the guns off people because you're of the opinion that we're going to turn on you and use them against you. Why would we? Why would we? Do you think everybody is as sick as you people? You are in our parliament for one reason and one reason only. To debate and pass laws for us, not over us. Debate and pass laws, not your version of what you think should happen. Only laws are made pursuant to this. How many times you have to be told, if a law is made outside the provisions of this, it doesn't exist. How do we know? Because it says so. We have the interpretation of our Constitution. It's this. The reason I'm showing you this, because it doesn't seem to have sunk in to politicians. This is the way elections are held. All law in this country. And you think somehow you have the right to change the law. Over the last 125 years, slightly more, you've spent all the time, the political parties and the people behind you have spent all the time perverting our law, our Constitution. It's whereas the people of New South Wales, Queensland, Victoria, Tasmania, South Australia and Western Australia joined together in one indissoluble federation of the Commonwealth of Australia. The people. The Constitution's clear. Not all enactments of the Parliament are valid. Only those passed pursuant to, in accordance with, and under the authority granted by the Constitution. And those laws only are binding on the courts, judges and people. All other laws are void. And you know that they're void. They don't exist in law. You sit down and you look at decisions of the High Court previously. What did they say? Well, let's deal with the first part. What was created at Federation? The colonies become states under the provisions of 107, 108 and 109. Each colony had a constitution. That was made letters patent, along with the Commonwealth Constitution Act and a heap of other legislation at Federation on the 29th of October 1900 by Queen Victoria. They were made letters patent, meaning they cannot be changed. It cannot be changed without permission of the people. It can't be touched without the permission of the people. When you are elected lawfully, which you aren't, none of yous comply with this. So you're not elected lawfully. Well, let's just say if you were, you would have to pass laws pursuant to our Constitution, or they don't exist. So any treaty you signed outside without permission from the Constitution, you don't have it. The interpretation of the Constitution, page 631 and 32, says limits what your external affairs powers are. None and zero. All the agreements you signed had to go to the people. How do we know that? Chief Justice French tells you that. Even Ian Toomey agreed with him. You continually carry on as if you can do this, you can do that, and you can do the other. No, you can't. You can only do what we grant you the right to do. Nothing in your new legislation is granted. Can you force the buyback of firearms? No, you can't. No, you can't. You can't pass federally a law which relates to a state authority. All the firearms were controlled and issued by the states. You cannot give power to police who do not swear an oath to the Crown to administer law. They all have ABN numbers. Where in federal law does it allow you to give permission to the police in each state who are registered federally, every so-called council in each state registered federally, every parliament in each state registered federally? Where does the authority for them to administer law? There's none. I'll tell you that now. Where in the Constitution does it say you can go retrospective? It actually says you can't, and yet you are. So the not the Treaty of Versailles, the Statute of Westminster is invalid. Alterations to the Electoral Act made retrospective from 1973, 72, around that time, back to 1948, invalid. So this is not hate speech. I've got nothing against Muslims coming here, nothing against Indians coming here, nothing against any of the other people coming here, in compliance with our Constitution. The problem is the people have their opinions of how things work, and they don't work the way you say. The big problem we have is people in our society believe you go from election to election and get your truth from your representatives. You get nothing. All you get is what their party feels, their ideals, and everything else. And their policy, they say, is law, but it's not. You get lawyers sitting as magistrates, which shouldn't be, because they're not officers of the Crown. They're officers of the Crown Corporation of the City of London through their oath to the bar. You'll see a little red stick fly out. That's to get rid of the movie stars with too many legs and wings, or annoy people. Now, when you look at paragraph 61 to 68 of the Constitution, it lays out what the Governor-General can do and what is expected of the Governor-General to do, and they're not doing it. She's not doing it. It's supposed to be a him, not a her. We need people to stand up and say, no, go away. Leave us alone. Pass laws for us, not over us. For us, not over us. None of the proposed purported laws you're passing are for us. They're over us to control us. You don't have that authority. Even with the state constitution, they are letters patents. You can't change them. It has to go to the reigning monarch to approve alterations, if you have authority to do it in our constitution. 106 allows the states to continue their constitutions subject to the Commonwealth Constitution and altered in accordance with their constitutions. When they were made letters patent, the only authority to alter them was alter them the way you think. Send it to the reigning monarch and get it signed. It never happens. It's not lawful. You can't touch it. Western Australia never put it in place. By 1975, every other state had massively altered their constitutions or replaced them totally for their own benefit. So there are no lawful states. But let's go back right on to Federation. They only had 5 instead of 6. They had 5 lawful state constitutions sitting there at Federation. 5. They needed 6, so that there was 6 lawful state parliaments. Because when you look at this, the Governor General, when he was put in place rather, would have to send the writs to the state governors so that they can set up a proper election. It isn't the case that so-called referendums prior to Federation put the Constitution in place and then suddenly the Constitution was ultra-vised because it came back from England. That concept is wrong. Not only wrong, it's unlawful to even make it. Do your research, you'll find out we, the people, according to the Constitution, approved the draft. The draft was an application to the monarch, who was ruler over the 6 colonies, to give us a constitution. That's why in the 4 words of the Constitution and in the first section of it, it talks about an enabling act. That's what the Constitution came back from England as, an enabling act, with 9 clauses, all part of it. The right to go to the Privy Council and everything else, all part of it. How our laws work, all part of it. All of it. Now, who told you, the politicians, you could change any of that? Nobody did. Nobody gave you permission. Nobody could give you permission. When you attempted to segregate Western Australia from the rest of Australia in 1936, you were told the Constitution is indissoluble, so is Federation, indissoluble, go back and govern your states. Do what you're told. Why? Because under the provisions of Clause 8, we're a self-governing colony of England. I welcome the fact that we have AAP fact checkers checking what I'm saying, because what I'm saying is according to the Constitution and decisions of the High Court. Now, the big problem we have is the High Court ceased to exist in 1979 when you passed an act to control it and gave the Parliament the right to form a committee to make the rules for the High Court. It's nothing to do with the Parliament. You only did it to get control. You removed the separation of powers between the executive, the legislature and the judicature. You removed it. Under what authority? You had none. Can you get that authority through legislative authority? No, you can't. You can't speak an authority into being when none exists in law. Kirby said it several times. No parliament by preambular assertion can speak an authority into being when nothing exists in law. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And without authority granted by the Constitution, you have none. You have none. So, you remove the Crown out of our legislation, out of everything. Systematically, Gough Whitlam with his little rant in 1972-73 signed the Unidroit Treaty. He couldn't do it. That was fraud and treason. He continued his treason till eventually he was sacked. Why wasn't he charged? Why wasn't he charged? Oh, he was high up in the Labor Party, so we won't charge him, we'll just let him go. Protection for who? For politicians to lie, cheat and steal and get away with it? That's all it did. The sacking was lawful. Have a look at it. Put out all the evidence. Why haven't you? Why haven't you told everybody what you've done? Now, how does a purported Governor-General operating outside of the provisions of 61 to 68 issue a letters patent for a royal commission? How do you have a royal commission when there's no royal? To be royal, it has to involve King Charles III, King of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Nothing to do with your royal styles and title purported act, because that's purported, it's unlawful. Can the state's constitutions give you any authority that way? No. The reason we know that is because in 1915, HCA 39, Sir Samuel Griffiths, one of the people who wrote the Constitution, was fully aware of its intentions and what it says. At paragraph 148 of that decision, he said, here you find Section 106 binds the state constitution, and look at that, and all laws made pursuant to it, to the overriding authority of the Commonwealth Constitution. So now you've got a problem, haven't you? So when you altered or changed or removed the state constitutions, contrary to 106, you negated each of the states. Each of the states. But there were only 5 using their constitutions. Western Australia wasn't. But you knew that. You knew it in 1979 when you added local government, another entity unknown to the Constitution and certainly not valid. But it goes further. Go back to 1946, January the 1st, 1946, when you started taking 7.5% tax off the people to pay for the pension. Section 51 says you will pay old age pensions and you will pay invalid pensions. There's no exception. The Constitution hasn't been altered, changed or anything else lawfully. So there are no exceptions to what you've done. You think that you can collect tax. You started collecting it in the war. Your excuse was, oh, you've got to pay tax so we can pay for the war. No, it wasn't our war. It was a war against England. We're a self-governing colony. The Governor-General and the Governor-General only, not the Parliament, could send soldiers there. Why? Because of Section 68 of our Constitution. You think that you can say and do what you like, but you can't. You think I'm a silly old man, but I'm not. I've read the Constitution, I comprehend it, I know what it says, and I know that you're all sitting in blatant treason, ignoring the will of the people, and the House of Representatives, who you represented. I can tell you who you're representing at present, your political parties, and the ideology of Labor, Liberal, Nationals, Greens, and every other flog that comes into this country and wants to control it. That's what you're doing. Nothing else. You're stealing off the people. And you want to give it to a one world system of government. And the problem that we have in this country is the lying fraudsters that sit in our parliament. And let's look at due process of law. Now, You don't have a governor in council, so how do you put laws together? How do you put this current purported laws together? By letters patent? She can't issue one. She's not the Governor-General. She hasn't sworn the lawful oath, and nor have you. None of you politicians. So how are you putting it back together? How are you putting the legislation together? You tell me. Tell the people of this country who you purport to serve how you put legislation together taking away all our rights. I know why you don't want guns. Should they be sitting around in a city? No. But you already knew they had the guns, or the federal police did. Why didn't they stop the two idiots before they killed people? They knew about them. They had all the information in a very short time. They never went there for anything other than to walk around the Philippines and then come back again without any reason for being there. Did they train there? The federal police don't know. Don't tell me you can spot two people like that wandering down there to know you would have had to have somebody following them. Did you? If you did, where is the paperwork to prove it? You represent us, remember, not the government. It isn't a secret. They should be exposed for who they are, who helped them, and why they did it. Why isn't that happening? You're not interested. All you want to do is use it as a reason to take away our rights. You don't have it. The High Court, HCA 44 of 2010, ruled 1688 Bill of Rights, habeas corpus, and all imperial law is law in this country and must be abided by. You have to abide by it. It's a ruling of the High Court. It's binding on the courts, judges, and the people of every state. Aren't you part of one of the states? If you're not, oh, bye-bye, go back to where you came from. Do you have the right over the people? No, you don't. I'm talking about facts in our Constitution. How legislation shall be put together by an executive council, 10 from the lower house, 8 from the upper, all selected by a lawful Governor-General, which we don't have. So who actually put this legislation together? I know, Albanese's government. It wasn't done in the last couple of months, not even since the last federal election, which was invalid. Again, it was proven on the 2nd and the 3rd in the West Australian newspaper, I'm talking about December 2025, that the election was a fraud, regardless of who did it. They were employed by you people, with your ABN. The Electoral Commission that doesn't even exist in law, operating contrary to this. See, I've read the comments. People are up in arms about everything that's going on, and they should be, and they should stay that way until you drop this rubbish and put it to the people, whether we want. Albanese, you said that you were going to deal with the Republic. You're trying, what you're trying is a republic by stealth. You already were rejected in 1999. We voted to retain everything that we had in our Constitution, not your republic. There was no High Court for Sue versus Hill. It had gone by 1979 under our Constitution. It was gone. You took it out. You added another system of government and gave it control over our land. Did you? Yes, you did. But you did it through the states, claiming they had state rights. No, they didn't. You see, you go to section 51, subsection 38 of the Constitution, says there was only 7 legislative areas exercisable by the Australasian Council and even less by the colonies, and all 7 are contained in section 51 of the Constitution. There is no control over land. Never was, because it was sold direct from the Crown to us in fee simple, alienated from the Crown. Now, what happens now? What happens now is every single one of you politicians cannot go into that parliament without sitting in blatant treason. I don't care who you are or what political party you belong to. If you were not elected according to this act, You want it? Contact me. I'll send you a copy. We got it on our computer. We can print it out, or send it to you so you can print it out, rather. Because I'm not printing it out and emailing it or anything else. You want it? Contact us. You'll get it. And that includes AAP fact checkers. We've got it. You can have it. You could read it and you find out there is no lawfully elected politicians in this country. Not one. Because they're elected under a system which does not exist in law. Can you change it? Well, let's get to the chase. Justice Heenan in the Supreme Court of Western Australia, while these fleas attempted to charge me with criminal contempt in the face of the court, 2 years after the court case, that's a joke in itself. How do you do that? Wind back time to then? He decided they were morons anyway at the end. But anyway, he said, doesn't the Constitution evolve? And I said, no. It's indissoluble. So is federation indissoluble. You can alter the Constitution. It will never make it evolve because it must be approved by the reigning monarch. He agreed. At the end of the case, he thanked me for giving him information he asked of me. Because he was retiring, he wanted to know. Maybe he had a prick of conscience, I don't know. And his reasons for asking me, I don't know. Maybe he was just got to the stage where he didn't believe the narrative anymore because the narrative is garbage. Policy is not law. Rules, regulations and orders, not law. Due process is a bill is put together by the Governor-General in Council. I'm talking about federal level. Which we don't have. We've never had a lawful federal parliament to put it together. So let's go back to where it is lawful, the states. They'd all removed their constitutions by 1975. So who's been putting legislation together? Nobody of any consequences. Nobody of any authority. Why have you all got ABN numbers? Not for GST, because any law in relation to tax shall deal with one subject to tax only. 2 videos back, or 3 videos back, I read straight out of the Constitution when it says can only deal with one subject to tax. Goods and services, 2 subjects to tax. What part don't you understand? What you're trying to say is we've got this power, we're going to do this. You can't go retrospective with any legislation. Second you attempt to, and what you're doing, you're attempting to gain authority to do what you're doing. Putting legislation in to Parliament. You can't. The Parliament doesn't have that authority. There's no executive, federal or national cabinet. None of that's law. It's all lies and fraud. Just like you, Anthony Albanese, you're sitting in total fraud of our Constitution and treason against the Crown of England. Treason Felony Act, you should read it and weep because it has penalties for people like you. I'm not going to say what they are because that'll be hate speech, and I ain't going to hate speech anybody. I would hate to see somebody suffering what that's got in line for you. But apparently you're going to get it if you don't pull your head in. The fact is, you can't debate or pass anything and call it a law. It has to be put together by the Governor in the states in Council, and then the Governor-General in Federal Parliament, which we don't have. So there's no debate there. It doesn't exist. When Western Australia's election was declared wrong, it should have been cancelled and start again. But did they do it? No, because they didn't want that to get out because they knew the consequences. If that was wrong, there was no lawful federal parliament or election. The big problem you've got is you think you have authority. You do. Only what we grant you. You see, when you go to page 701 of the Constitution, it has a map of how the system's set out. Commonwealth, quasi-sovereign. That's us. That's not the commonwealth of the people. That's one version, but it is not the one in the Constitution. At Federation, it set up the commonwealth of the people here. Every single person on this place. A lawful person, not a legal person. There's a difference. One's a legal fiction, one's not. One's truth. You can be a person as defined by the dictionary, not by the Corporations Act 2001, which is a fraud, because the Parliament wasn't there to produce that act, nor was Essex Act, nor were any of the other acts, nor was the Treaty of Versailles, the League of Nations, the United Nations, the Statute of Westminster. None of that is lawful, and you know it. So Harry Gibbs knew it and said we're a lawless country. So what you do it, instead of doing the right thing and saying everybody before you has lied, where a few people would stand trial who were still alive and probably get off because they were so old they were incapable of dealing with the issues before them, or whatever. They would be dealt with. What I'm talking about is what took place, but you didn't do it. Oh no, we'll have a referendum in 1988 to put in place local government. It had 4 questions and we said no to the lot. No means exactly that. There's no such thing as carried or not carried. It should have all been carried to the tip or down the sewer where it belongs. But you won't follow that because you're too thick to do it. You think you have the authority to stand over the peoples. We are sovereign and supreme in our own right. Supreme, absolute and uncontrollable authority remains with us. If we don't grant it through our Constitution, it doesn't exist. There is no other way for you to get authority except via us. Via us. Underneath the Commonwealth on page 701, which is quasi-sovereign because we give part of our legislative authority through our Constitution and direct how you will govern us. Not over us, how you will govern for us. Under that Commonwealth is the Constitution. That's what it's referring to. Then it says the legislature, executive, and judicature, federal. Why wasn't it established? Because it didn't exist. We didn't have 6 states to approve it to start off with. You can't change that. Only way you can rectify the problem is get everybody out of Parliament, have the governors of the state, if they were lawful, and they aren't. So you have to fix that problem with England by recommending people and getting approval from the reigning monarch. Put every state constitution back in place and start governing according to that. After you've had an election in the states, have an election for a federal parliament, the first lawful one since federation. The first lawful one. None of them have been lawful. Not one. So all your federal laws, everything you're trying to do, Albanese, is nothing but treason and fraud on the people. You can say, or you can get your lackeys to say, the Commonwealth isn't a corporation. The Commonwealth of Australia Proprietary Limited is registered to the US Securities Exchange Commission. The number is 0000805157. Clear as a bell. I learnt it. Lots of people have. I brought it up in court. I stated who I was in court. They've denied it. The police tried to say I appointed myself. I did not. And I proved with a certificate, which the magistrate didn't want to look at. He said, I understand what that is. I don't need to look at it. That's okay. He still conceded that I was a lawfully appointed officer of the Crown, with a duty to report indictable offences. Every single politician in this country at present is sitting in blatant treason. Every public servant who hasn't sworn the oath, sitting in blatant treason. Every police officer, everyone who has not sworn a lawful oath is sitting in blatant treason. Like it or lump it, I'm revealing it, you're all in treason. You're all incapable of sitting in our Parliament. Why? Because the Constitution says Section 44, if you're attainted of treason, you can't sit. You're all attainted of treason. Why? Because I've accused you of it. Can I? I'm a lawfully appointed officer of the Crown. We did try to file all these writs into the High Court. They were all rejected because none of you are officers of the Commonwealth. We did under 75(5) of the Constitution. None of you are. What did we try and file? Mandamus, prohibition, satori, and challenge to jurisdiction. And it still has not been answered since November the year before last. You haven't answered it because you can't prove your jurisdiction since the 1979 Act. If you can't prove your jurisdiction, you can't pass any laws. You can't propose the laws. Go back to the due process of law. The Executive Council, with the Governor-General and the Federal Attorney-General sitting there, which they don't do because they don't exist, has to propose bills prior to legislation. They put it to the lower house. They go through it and sort out anything that's wrong, punctuation, whatever, or any wording that might be detrimental to the legislation. Hasn't happened. Otherwise this legislation would have been before the Parliament before Christmas, but it wasn't. It wasn't there. Then it goes to the upper house. They check it all out, make sure it's correct, and make sure it complies with the authority granted by the Constitution. They never did it. They haven't done it. It doesn't exist. Then the Governor-General, if we had one, we don't, would have to sign off on it, saying it complies with the Constitution, which would bind the Crown to a law made pursuant, made pursuant to the Constitution. It's a letters patent, still has to go to the Crown for the reigning monarch's signature. They can't sign it because it doesn't comply with the Constitution. It's not law. What part of isn't law don't you understand? And it doesn't automatically become law if it expires before they get to sign off on it. The big problem you have is you've been lying to the people for so long, you think you can just do what you like. You think that you can bring people in this country and let them practice religions, and lots of them in here, which are detrimental to our Constitution. Our Constitution in its interpretation says, follow our customs and beliefs, assimilate into our society, or leave. You've never done it. So all the ones that are against us, leave. Goodbye. Don't let the door hit you in the back on the way out. Get out of our country. You have no right to be here. This is not a hate speech. I'm not saying, look, we talk to people from Cocos Islands. They speak the same language as my wife, Indonesian. They are lovely people. They're welcome to stay here if they follow our customs and beliefs, and they're doing it. The radicals, the ones that want to take this country over, introduce Sharia law, that's not following our customs and belief, our society. That's a radical religion that has no part in our society whatsoever. If it's a religion, then it's a religion. You can't legislate against it, you don't have to. The superior legislation in this country is our Constitution. They follow our customs, our beliefs, and they do what they're told or they get out. Nothing hateful there at all. You give them the chance, turn from what you're doing, from what you want to do, or get out. It's literally that. I listened to a guy, he was half crying when he was explaining the fact that his children, under particular religions, and there's lots of them will allow it, can be married off at a young age. Have sex with old men. Is it for boys or girls? I don't know. I don't even want to know what they're doing. I don't want to know what they're doing. Put the laws back in place that belong there. Put all our laws that we have made pursuant to the Constitution. How many is that? None. We've never had a lawful sitting federal parliament, so there are no lawful federal laws. None. You can't speak it into being without evidence in the Constitution that it should be. You can't do it. That's what Kirby was talking about. That's what lots of people with a brain are talking about. There's lots of brainless ones. We get them all the time. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you get off your lazy, fat backside and do it yourself? You know, you do not have the authority to control this country. You've got to understand. I was in the police force for 17 years. What did I understand about my obligations? Whatever I did while at work would reflect on how I was treated by the general public when I left work. You've got to understand what you do in work, and this is not a veiled threat. You've got to understand federal police, state police, ASIO, whoever, border security, the whole lot of yous, whatever you do to people while you're employed, you've got to go home. When you go home, what are they going to do to you? I don't know. I hope nothing. I don't wish you any problem except get out of your job until you swear the lawful oath and follow our Constitution. Why is there so much talk about this Constitution? Why has the government not been taken to court? We don't have any lawful courts to do it, and the courts we've used, we've been to everyone in this country, they ignore it. That's why. Don't ask questions. What are you doing about it? And I took just a second to explain that because he seems to be bewildered about what's going on, and I understand that. There's a talk about the Constitution. Have you ever read it? Have you learnt it? Are you going to apply it? Please do. You need a description of it. You need a copy of it. We've got it all. We can send it to you on your email and you can read it. That's what you can do. I appreciate your question, and I'm answering your question without any animosity. So please read the Constitution if you haven't got one. Give us a yell, we'll send you a copy. There's not going to be any Sharia law in this country because that changes our Constitution. We only have one law, and that law is passed pursuant to the authority granted by us to the politicians. Sharia law is not granted by us. I don't care how many millions of people you got here who want it, they're not having it. If you want it, go back to your country. That's not our society. That's not assimilating into our society. We're not a republic. We're not what you try to make us out to be. Multinational is where our heritage comes from. But we, the other people who came here, except since 1974, were assimilating into our society, enjoying the fruits of their labour. So let's look at the fruits of your labour. Who owns them? Who owns your labour? You do. Who owns the fruits of your labour? You do. So where in the Constitution does it say they had the right to continue taxing your labour after the war? They didn't have it. Why were they using it? Did they have the assets to pay off the so-called debts of the war? Yes, they did, under the ground. They're using it now, underground assets. All the minerals that are under the ground, they knew they were there, quite a few of them, especially the gold and silver and the iron ore. Why wasn't that used to pay off the debts? Why did they suddenly decide we had to be bankrupt? How can you go bankrupt when you got billions and billions in assets, or actually trillions? And the more they look for oil and everything, we've got trillions. So why are we paying tax? Why are you giving minerals to other countries? Forbidding people to burn coal to produce power. Don't say you can't clean it up. The atmosphere is void of enough carbon dioxide now. We need above 185 parts per million, according to the true science, not your version. You're trying to say that the humans are responsible for it all. No, we're not. 0.04 of 1% is the science. Volcanoes chuck more up in the air in one day than the human race has ever done since creation. Science. Can you take carbon dioxide out? I've already told you how. All you have to do is spray water with garden lime into the flow of the exhaust of a car, and there it goes. Why can't you do it in the power stations? You're cooling and washing it. Why aren't you using lime in that? You either don't know, haven't bothered to find out, or couldn't care, because you've had this going for a long, long time. What do you want to do to us? There's no typing while I'm speaking. What it is, we've got a tarpaulin over one section of the roof of the fifth wheeler because it leaks in that area, and while we're waiting for someone to repair it, it's got a tarp, and it's a tapping on the window, and we can't stop it. So don't worry about it. We're not typing at all, just so you know. Thank you. Now, getting back to what I'm talking about. Until you put the state constitutions in place, elect a lawful state parliament, upper and lower house, and keep them, and allow them to pass laws according to the state law constitution, in compliance with the federal one, we can't have a lawful government. No one in this country owns any land when they don't live here. What I'm talking about is the big corporations and everybody else, China, all the different countries own nothing until our constitution says we can lease it to them. They can't get it. It's not up to them. It's up to the Crown. Who's a representative of the Crown? State level, the governors. Federal level, the Governor General. That's what our constitution demands. Do we have it? No. This is not about me having hate speech or anything else. You can't have retrospective legislation, which is in your so-called legislation that you purported to have now, which you're only going to give 2 days to debate 500 pages. 500 pages is half this book. This is 1,008 pages. Take the 8 pages off. 1,000 or half of this, they've got to understand or comprehend, work out how it affects everybody, and do what they want to do. But you don't want that. What you want to do is ram your so-called legislation through our parliament and demand everybody complies with it. And if they don't, you threaten us with jail. What about if we threaten you with life imprisonment if you do? What about if the people rise up, which is what Sir Winston Churchill said? We have to be forever vigilant that the people have the power to raise up under Magna Carta and do to us whatever it takes to put our country back where it belongs. His words. Why did you end my video? I just cut it off. Let's end it. It's gone. Switch it straight back on if you can. Yeah, it's gone. Look. It's not working. Well, it doesn't appear to be. All right? They've cleared it all again. Thank you. Now we're back on again. It's stalled. I don't know why they would be interfering it, just because they want to. Now, all I'm saying is absolutely nothing that is going through the federal or state parliaments is lawful. Wake up to that fact. Do you have to sell your guns? You don't have to sell any property. The police do not have the right to decide who does and doesn't have authority to have a firearm, drive a car, do anything. There is legislative authority to deal with that. It's called a court, a lawful gathering under the sovereign. No, you didn't lose it here, but we lost us. It just went still. We couldn't even talk. You could probably hear me, but there was no picture, there was nothing. It was just blanked out. Alright, it's fixed now anyway, thank you. Now, no, that's okay, thanks. I'm glad it didn't stop. What has to happen now, we need now, as a country, as a group of people, as the Commonwealth, that's all we are, they are not. Politicians are not. They've stepped outside of it and made themselves different to us. They are different. They will not follow the law. They will not follow the will of the people. What does that prove? They're traitors, liars, frauds, and cannot do the things they're doing. Now, all I'm going to do now Anthony Action. Standing answers the first and on the highest question in law. Who are you? Yeah, righto. Who are politicians? Can they show in the Constitution where they come from, their political parties, and their version of authority? No, they can't. I'm not going to get into answering all this, these questions now. I've put what the law says. If you don't want to follow it and you allow these people to walk all over you and take what you got, understand you're going to be abundantly happy living in a little unit that they put you in, or in a jail cell. You'll own nothing. You have worked all your life for zero, and you're letting them take it because you won't open your mouth. You won't open your mouth. You won't stand up and be counted and say, you're not going to do it. You see, I've got 17 grandkids. I rely on the law to be lawful so they can enjoy their lives the way I did when I was a kid. There's an ever-increasing amount of unlawful acts, statutes, rules and regulations which are taking away their ability to live free the way they want without harming others. How are we going to fix that? As parents, as grandparents, as new parents, what are you going to do to fix the problem? Are you going to stand up, or are you going to grow a great big fat yellow streak down your back and do nothing? I'm not going to swear at you. There's no point in swearing. I heard the guy this morning. He was passionate. He swore. So what? I don't hold that against him. He was saying something, saying what he felt in his heart, saying what he thought would happen to his children. Why aren't you? Why aren't you saying what you feel they are doing to your parents, your kids, your grandkids, all your relatives? Why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you politicians cowering down in the corner with big yellow streaks down your back and at least standing up and saying, no, Albanese, no political parties, you're not going to do, I'm taking a stand. What for? For the Commonwealth of Australia. The 27 million people that are here. And the ones that shouldn't be here, remove them. The problem is we are being ripped off and put in a position. I watch Kangaroo Jack. He's passionate about what he believes. So what? He's allowed to have his own beliefs. I don't believe a lot of what he says, but there's issues there, but we can deal with those later. We need to work together, black, white and brindle. We need to work together because it's our kids. Time to wake up. So I'm going to leave it there. Think about what I'm saying and go and tell your politicians at their houses, get out. You're sacked. Why haven't you done it? Why haven't you written a letter saying, I withdraw my vote? You don't have any authority to exist anymore. But know this, anything they pass which doesn't comply with our Constitution doesn't exist and affords no obedience whatsoever. In the words of Sir Samuel Griffiths, it's pro tanto invalid. Absolutely invalid and unlawful. You make the decision what you're going to do. I hope you have a nice day. and think hard about what I've said.